Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show. AJ Bruno, co-founder and CEO of Quotapath. Welcome, AJ.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, great to have you on. Just as in the run up to SaaS.remote, which is happening on the 10th and the 11th, and you'll be speaking there and speaking at the SaaS conference for the first time. So great to have you speak. It's a little bit easier to get our US friends to speak at online conferences rather than fly over to Dublin. Although we do there is a big interest in flying over to Dublin because everybody seems to like Ireland, right?
My wife this morning, she was going through Facebook and she was like, "Hey, I see this ad. Do you know any of these speakers?" And it was an ad for a SaaS talk, and I was like, "Well, I'm speaking at the conference. Why am I not on that list?" But no, I'm super excited to be doing it for the first time, and I hope in the future I get to be a part of the in-person event. And I'll take Dublin. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm looking for. I mean, it's a shame. Obviously, we made the decision not to do in-person events this year. Again, just around the obvious kind of reasons, of COVID. We don't know if there'll be a second wave or not. But it's a little bit too risky for our for our team, for our customers, and for us to kind of run an event. So Dublin will hopefully happen in October 2021, but I'll be longing for that pint of Guinness in Ireland before then, but it will be good. So hopefully we get to have a pint of Guinness then together, if you drink, that is. Of course, I won't make you drink if you don't drink. But tell us a little bit about yourself, to our audience. Who is AJ Bruno?
I was just thinking back to the times, and this was in my, we'll say, previous career when I stand on desks and do shots of Fireball. So your question about do I drink? Being on a sales team and sales leader, I have in the past, certainly, but I would absolutely enjoy a pint of Guinness. Alex, to answer your question, AJ Bruno, co-founder, CEO of Quotapath. This is my second startup. My first was a company called TrendKite, based in Austin, Texas. Founded that in 2012. And that was on the tail end of a 5-year sales career stint with a company called Meltwater, which was in this media monitoring space. Big sales team. Yep. I think we had about 800 people on the sales team out of a 1,000-person company. So very B2B, very cold call to close type of sell, or 2007 to 2012. I founded that based on the idea in this space called public relations, this idea of attribution. So if you're a company, corporation, whatever, and you're looking for news coverage on yourself, what is the actual value on that news? Who's reading it? What are they saying about it? And actually giving real meaningful numbers, not just impression and fluffy social metrics, but the actual ROI. So founded that in 2012. We grew that company to 25 million in ARR in 4 years. And I ran the sales team all the way through. So 0 to 20 million, I led a team that grew to about 150 folks between the lead generation, new business, and account management. And saw that all the way through. Had a phenomenally successful time there, mostly because of the people that we hired and just how driven they were all the way through. I left that company in 2018, right before acquisition, to a big public company called Cision. It got sold for 225 million, so a really great outcome. And I immediately started a second company, and that company is Quotapath, which is on the back end of my sales career and understanding what are some of the sales challenges that we had.
So the TrendKite acquisition, it was 225 million by Cision. Is that how you pronounce it?
Cision.
Cision.
Although it's Swedish, so maybe you're probably closer to the actual pronunciation, but
and yeah, so that was 10x revenues at the time. So growing to 25 million ARR 4 years. I mean, congrats. That's really good growth. What percentage of the company did you own at exit?
Oh, I owned 100%. All founders own 100% of the company, right? No, we had done 5 rounds of funding up through Series D. And I think one of the things when you start a company is you don't really understand cap tables and don't understand how that works. It was a great learning lesson. I owned a humble piece of it, but it was still a humble piece of a $225 million exit. So financially, I did another podcast about wealth and just like how that worked, but it brought financial freedom and gave me the ability to start a company. And my wife's also started a company as well since then. So allowing us to pursue other ventures for ourselves, and feeling good about our financial security for years to come.
So and why? As you said, you started another SaaS company, pretty much like straight away. Why not take some time off or become an investor and some other paths, or become a coach, whatever? Why do it again?
I think I'm doing all those things too. I have done about 12 startup investments, and I'm advising 3 companies too. And so you cover all the white space you can. I always thought that I was going to take time off. I was driven. Going sales for about 10 years straight, in inside sales, a monthly sales cycle with monthly quotas and monthly targets. It can wear on you. Mm-hmm. You eventually start to like smooth out and get way more consistent, and then consistency leads to your team. So it feels slightly better with more predictable revenue. But that said, I was really inspired by the idea and passionate about the idea of what we're doing with Quotapath. And I think that really led to like, okay, I'll take a couple months off. And I did a couple consulting gigs at the same time. But the more we went down the path of Quotapath, the more we followed this idea, the more clear it became that there was a real, not just problem, but there was a real solution to meet the market. And so I became more and more excited about it. And then once I like get captivated on something, I'm just going to drive through it.
How much time did you take off in between TrendKite and Quotapath?
I didn't take off a single day. My wife and I went on a cruise for a week with some friends. And then I went to South by Southwest and spoke at it, but also like enjoyed it for the first time in the 7 years that I lived in Austin. I guess 5 years I lived in Austin, 7 years attending it. But I didn't take a single day off from starting from TrendKite to Quotapath.
And I saw on, I think it was on your LinkedIn, you said, I get tattoos if my team kills it. So how many tattoos have you got? Have you got an exceptional team and you're covered in tattoos, or have you got just 1 or 2?
Yeah, I actually just have 1. So it started in early 2013. We were driving for our first $100,000 month, new business month. And we had our whiteboard that had our pipeline, our committed ops, and some of the things that you like culturally align with in the sales team. For example, if you had a committed op on the whiteboard and it fell out, you couldn't erase it. I wouldn't allow you to erase it. You had to cross it off. It just goes like that idea that you put that up there, you owned it, and you're going to be accountable for it. Well, it started like that board became bigger and bigger. And then we started to think about ops that like we were opportunities, I should say. So for those not familiar, those are deals that you're working on that could potentially come in. And one of my sales managers who eventually became a director said, look, if we close all these deals, we're going to hit 100,000. What are we going to do for 100,000? Like, AJ, you have to get a tattoo. And you can see me on the screen. I do not look like a tattoo person whatsoever. Alex, you fit the mold very well. Not me. But I was like, okay, I can do that. And we finished at $97,000. And we were cruising. The next month, it became 200,000, and the tattoo list grew and grew, and we hit $297,000, and 295, I think, that month. Or no, 195. Sorry. So we didn't quite get it, and the tattoo list got forgotten. About 6 months later, we were headed towards our first $1 million month, and the tattoo list came back. And I wasn't so worried. I was like, $1 million. I mean, we did 600,000 last month, but $1 million is going to be a stretch for this already, for us just to cruise up to $1 million. My wife was kind of upset about it. She was like, AJ, I always looked at you as a leader in everything you do, but here you're being a little bit of a follower. You're buying into peer pressure. And I was like, you know what? No, if we hit this, I am going to look back at it and say that was a moment where my team did something so great that I absolutely want to memorialize this. And we did. We hit $1 million. And so I'm a pilot, and I have a tattoo on my ribs of a plane that's like moving forward along a flight path. So it reminds me to always keep moving forward.
Very cool. Very cool. Most people know, I don't know if it's on this side, but I've got a tattoo of the SaaS logo.
That's awesome.
We can't rebrand now. Or if we do, I just get more, I guess. But moving from tattoos to the topic of helping sales team hit quotas, and this is something I want to have a discussion with you and kind of mainly kind of pick your brains on. It's been a long time since I was a salesperson, so yeah, it would be good to talk to you about this. So, first question I want to ask is, do you believe in stretch goals or achievable targets? And what's your kind of opinion here? Because there's differing opinions to a lot of people that we speak to.
Yeah, I mean, for me in life in general, I believe in stretch goals and targets. So the answer is yes. This isn't just a sales thing. I think writing something down is very, very important. I do this in my personal life. I do this in my business life, year to year, month to month, week to week, day to day even. I keep a daily log of all of my goals and how I'm going to achieve them. Really big believer in those. For sales, however, I think the way I think about it is especially looking back at TrendKite, because I had this interesting view as a founder and on the board, thinking about the financial goals and the financial targets of the company, but then being able to bring that down to the quotas and the targets of the quota capacity of the sales team. And so I could bridge the gap between the art of the sell with the sales team and like what the different plays and the different strategies going into calls for account planning were, all the way up to the science of the sales of what does the model look like, demo to close ratio, pipeline, how do the conversions in the funnel work, all the way through consistent messaging, all of that stuff. So I had this really interesting view. And at TrendKite, one of the biggest challenges we ran into early is I wasn't hiring fast enough. I think lots of companies and teams run into this from a recruiting standpoint of like, you want to hire really, really good people. But the problem was the financial plan outpaced what our headcount growth was. Meaning, if our quota was $100,000, our financial, and that was 10 people, our financial plan might say, oh, your quotas actually should be $200,000, 20 people. And we got backwards flipped on it, where for almost a year, we were behind in our financial targets as quota capacity. So our team had to overperform by a lot, by about 150%. We always did it, almost always did it. 34 out of 36 monthly quotas we hit during that time. And I realized that, yeah, stretching a team maybe isn't always sustainable, but having those stretch goals and really honing in on them will allow you to meet expectations as you move down. So if we hit 150%, then our financial target might have been 125%, and we're still going to hit financial target, which we always did as well. And that carried through, but you have to have the right ingredients and the right type of person to be able to think like that. And I think even now it's really hard, especially with everyone working remotely, to be able to create the cadence and create the motivation and consistency with your reps to be able to do that. So it's a challenge to create stretch goals in today's environment. I'll definitely say that's true.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a recent tweet, and I don't have the full context, but from Todd McKinnon, CEO of Okta. I think they were doing their quarterly executive, sort of like meetup, and he was basically showing, some grids with a lot of reds and maybe kind of one or two greens, and he was saying, look, his belief, and he's always been a believer in setting like big stretch goals, and then if you fail, like that's fine. But at least you've been trying to kind of like hit those goals rather than set things that are kind of, easily achievable. But I guess kind of like, great if you do that. I guess you've got to get the right people on board that can deal with that, right? And live with that, because a lot of people, if you're consistently failing, are going to get demotivated, especially in sales, I would think, right?
Well, so in our app, and to explain what our app does a little bit, it helps salespeople track their commissions in a very straightforward manner. It's a real easy way to be able to understand what you're going to actually earn in performance. And a lot of our app is actually centered around goal tracking and forecasting. We have a part of the application called My Path, which is a little bit like a mint.com for salespeople, basically a portfolio where they can keep track of their career earnings, how they're doing, but they can also do goal tracking, like how many deals for a down payment on a house or an engagement ring or President's Club. And what we've noticed in our application, the folks that use that usually sit 117% on average of target. So they actually set goals that way. And people that use our application are high performers, because if you think about someone, take our app away and just in a sales role, when they close the deal, what's one of the first things they're going to do? They're going to go see how much they made off of that deal. Well, the really good ones are proactive about it, and you might have accelerators and decelerators, and they know how to gamify their comp plans a little bit, but they also have a really strong understanding of how they're doing quarter to quarter. And so what we've done is added another layer to that helps those high performers do exactly that. So I would say, if you're thinking about it from a sales perspective, like, how do I continue to get better? Writing down those stretch goals and being okay with seeing red sometimes is a really important skill set to have. You just have to be uncomfortable with those failure points.
What do you do? So in terms of like your sales team, so I mean, you mentioned the Meltwater example, like 800 salespeople in a company of 1,000, right? What is the Quotapath kind of team look like? You know, what percentage is sales, and then what is the structure of that sales team?
So we have 17 people on the team right now. So we're 2 years in. What I would ask you this: what percentage of our team do you think is sales?
So you've got 17. Given that you worked at Meltwater, I'm just going to have a guess and say 80%.
So we literally just hired our first salesperson.
Right. Okay.
We're actually, and this is lessons learned, we're very big on product and engineering. And there's a movement, I think OpenView has really pushed this movement of product-led growth of PLG. Yes. You could think of it as Slack, you could think of Dropbox. There's Notion and Airtable companies that are say, hey, here's our product, try it out. We've also gone that route for sales teams and sales reps. So our first year was building the tool for the individual seller just to get it out there in the freemium. And there's competitors in our bucket. In fact, one of them just raised $13 million in a Series A from Sequoia. It was just announced 2 days ago. So this is a known problem, but all of them are looking at it very top down. So they're building traditional sales teams. And everyone has said, well, AJ, you have the sales background. Why don't you just go out and build a B2B? Because I don't think that's how a really sustainable, long-lasting company should be built. I think it should be centered around the user engagement and customer retention. And so we hired a customer success person, was our first actual growth hire. That was last year. We had an account manager salesperson that started last week as our first sales hire. And then we have one starting next week as well. Both people that I've worked with. I feel really strong that we're going to create an awesome process and we're going to build that team up, but feel that their goal and their role is to make sure that users understand and realize the value of our service, not to push and press a hard sell on individual users.
Awesome. So with the product-led growth approach, so you have a freemium model. Are you aimed more at the kind of the SMB sort of market? At the moment, do you have an enterprise plan?
Yeah, I mean, you've nailed it. There's two tiers right now. There's the free and then plus, and then we'll have a pro, and plus is $20 per user per month. That's aimed at a sales ops director, even CRO of the mid-market. And you can integrate to Salesforce. We'll have HubSpot integration shortly. And it allows people to very quickly get up on onboarded. The biggest challenge in our space is onboarding, and it takes a really long time. The incumbent legacy players in our space usually take months. I know this because we bought one of those services and it took us 8 months to onboard. By then we had changed the comp plan 2 times. So it doesn't make any sense. So all of these companies look at it from a finance standpoint and have to have complicated formulas, all that stuff. We just removed all of it. So a rep could set up their own comp plan in a matter of minutes. And we have 80% success with reps setting up their own plan. And then a comp owner could come into the workspace, adopt those plans, officialize, like notarize them, and send them as official plans out so that they're locked and loaded with a Salesforce integration. And it's really that easy. So it takes less than a day to onboard a full team. And that's how we think about it. And so I will build a sales team that will be more on the account management, sales assist side of the house. I 100% will set targets, and we eat our own dog food. So we absolutely use Quotapath in the background at the company.
So as you just made that first sales hire, and will likely, make many more, as time goes on, what are you going to do, as CEO of the company to, do your best to help your sales team hit their targets beyond, well, you can include tech within that and obviously, eating your own dog food, but what else do you need to do, as a leader of the company, or even, as a CRO or a VP of sales to help your sales team hit target?
Continue to be on the front lines. I need to continue to be in those conversations and understand the methodology front to back, and have conviction around the repeatability of it. It's also helpful for me from a product side. We're very product led, to make sure that that feedback loop is getting into it, so that it helps enhance and support the team, and that we set fair targets and fair quotas. I still feel strongly that a lot of it, the market is massive for us, and most companies still use spreadsheets for this today. So the market's still very much on education and educating customers on how to use our service. But ultimately, to best support the team, I just need to be leading by example with them and helping close deals.
At what point do you start to build, sales and go-to-market playbook?
We've already done that. So we did that at the beginning of the year, and we have 20 different presentations on objection handling, obviously the sales methodology, what the reach out, the persona, the value propositions, all the way through. Even though we're a product-led company, I'm still a born seller at heart, and so my own killer instinct made those things happen early and often.
Motivation's a big part, for salespeople. Not just salespeople, right? But certainly when you've got a highly motivated salesperson, they're often highly motivated because they're doing quite well, right? But there are always kind of bumps in the road, and again, as salespeople, you get a lot of no's as well. And we can certainly say from our experience, as we pivoted online for SaaS.remote. This was during March and April, when really not a lot of people were buying, because there was a lot of uncertainty because of the global pandemic. And we probably had more no's, but maybe everybody had more no's than ever, kind of during that time, right? And
yeah.
The sales team get a little bit sort of deflated. What do you do in these situations where perhaps the sales team are a little bit deflated? How do you pick them up, beyond I guess, them closing deals? It's certainly, if there's a situation where the market's not good, as it was, in March and April.
You have empathy. I started my career in 2008. I'm not even trying to compare this recession or whatever, the pandemic and all things, to 2008. But at the same time, I know what it's like to have someone pick up the phone and say, "Hey, have you been watching the news? We just had five closings, our budget's cut, all of that stuff." And salespeople are used to no's. We live outside our comfort zone to get those no's. A quick no is actually sometimes a good thing for us, in a lot of cases a good thing for us. But at the same time, you just have to be empathetic with the team that this is pretty tough, and you kind of have to have fun and laugh with it. So in 2008, for example, one of my coworkers was making a call, and I overheard her talking to someone that was at the front desk, and it was just an odd conversation. The person's like, "Wait, you're the only one at the desk right now? Wait, is this a real company?" And she hung up, and I was like, "Who did you just call?" And she looked at it and she said, "Lehman Brothers, I think." And Lehman Brothers had in the States had massively imploded and was all over the news, but she was completely unaware. And so you have to laugh at those type of situations that happen. It's tough to do because we're not in person, and I am a very extroverted person. We all have this fatigue of having these conference calls, so it makes it that much tougher. So as a leader, you just really have to be present for those one-on-one conversations that you're still having with your the middle manager gets a lot of flack in the sales organization for just kind of hanging out. But the organizations that will thrive, use a SaaS stock term, will thrive, or where they can lift up, the leaders can lift up the middle managers and empower them to make their team successful during these times, equip them with the tools, whatever they need to be engaged. And also, by the way, cut the ones that aren't, because you need to make quick decisions on that and just kind of consolidate there. I'm not advocating layoffs or anything like that, but I think there's plenty of middle managers that don't do a great job. So it's really important to recognize the ones that do and make quick decisions on the ones that don't.
It leads nicely actually into my next question. So like, when do you fire or cut those that are missing targets, and what is an acceptable ness in your point of view? If somebody's hitting 60% sort of regularly, do they stay on the team? If they're 50%, what is that point where you say, look, we got to get rid of you, you're not a top performer?
It was always a funny conversation, and I'm like, oh man, this guy, he's hits 65% every single month. His profit margins for the business are fantastic. He's not making any money, but he's making the business like he's actually a profitable person. I've gone through this exercise many times, even myself as a seller. I zeroed 3 months in a row when I first started in sales. So again, it goes back to empathy and understanding the mindset of the person you're talking to. Performance plans are certainly a thing, and they should be used accordingly. But I can't think of a time where a top seller, an eventual top seller, wasn't put on a performance plan. And that's the kick sometimes that people need. I mean, every top athlete has this where they just, confidence gets shaken, everything gets down, their swings out of whack. So as a coach, you just have to recognize when they are a top performer that we can get them back. It's just working with them every day. And sure, you can put a performance plan in the background. And that's the accountability measure. If they start hitting those things, then they'll continue, and then confidence builds and they'll be back on the saddle. Of course, there's also lots of people that are just not interested in doing sales, and just are over it. Maybe they're over the company, the product, culture is bad, subculture, they've gotten in the wrong crowd, can't work from home well, whatever the case may be. You just set up a plan, and as long as that plan follows, then it's always just as much my fault for making a poor choice in hiring and not doing a good job on onboarding it as it is for you not performing. So 50-50 on the split.
We obviously spoke about earlier on that celebrating the huge milestone of 1 million, NRR, you got a tattoo. I want to know, like, for those perhaps that don't want to get, tattoos, but want to celebrate wins, and especially celebrating wins like remotely, like right now, we can't go down the pub or crack open a bottle of champagne, for a big win. Certainly if you don't have it, stocked in your fridge. So how do you celebrate wins, I guess, kind of like right now with your team? What are your kind of thoughts, on that? And in general, what do you do at Quotapath, apart from the tattoos?
I mean, we're kind of lucky in that we had two things going for us. One, our company is split between Philadelphia and Austin. My wife and I moved back to Philadelphia for family reasons in 2017. So we've already had a little bit of remote cultural there. And so we had already set up rituals. So we do wins of the week at the end of the week. And then we also do shout outs where employees can single out other employees for something that they helped out with. And it's a lot of cross-departmental, cross-functional opportunities. So I think you just need to set those up to begin with and make sure that those exist in an organization. Even on a team, a sales manager can set something up like that and make them consistent. As far as like the normal celebrations, whether it was going out to a pub or grabbing a team lunch or taking a day off with the team, and those have changed a little bit. But I ultimately think that it's a short-term thing. It feels very temporary in that. I've encouraged by people making plans for July and for August to have smaller group gatherings and doing things like that. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with pushing, at least making the plan for it, to have an in-person celebration with a smaller group, and maybe even making that the target itself. It's like, look, if we're all in the right phase or in the clear, and we do these 3 things, then let's make it a bigger. So making that celebration a little bit of a longer term. You still have to have the weekly wins. For my team specifically, I've done a few things that I would say are just a little bit, just making sure, taking care and supporting the team. One is just having that, understanding that mental health day. Of course, lots of people have canceled vacations and trips, and knowing that it's okay as a group. A month ago, I think a lot of CEOs are doing this now. It's just saying, hey, we're all going to take the day off today. That's great. I also am personally allowing each person a budget of $100 to buy something for their home office, a decoration, and we're having a show and tell day next week for it. But the stipulation is you have to do it from a small business, a local small business, and so no Amazon included in that. But it's just some fun things that you want to make sure that your team stays engaged and stays with you.
Awesome. So you'll be speaking at SaaS Remote either on the 10th or the 11th. Do you know the
11th, I believe.
What will you be speaking about?
So I'm speaking with Ariel, and she, interestingly, she owns a PR agency. We're talking about a couple different things. Obviously, remoteness is a topic, but it's one of the things that I'm working through is recruiting in during this time. And how do you onboard employees during this time? There's there's remote culture for sure, but for an inside sales team, how do you onboard an inside sales team during this time? And so we're having a fireside chat that will dive into that, and hopefully some really good stuff will come out of it and growing. And I again love the idea of thriving. Like, how do you take advantage of this? And I used to say about a month and a half ago, oh, Quotapath's net neutral. I actually no longer believe that. I actually believe that this is going to be an awesome summer for the company. And I'm really excited about that as we grow and head into the fall and look to potentially raise a Series A at that time.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to that. And final question we always ask our guests, how they stay healthy and sane. What is your way?
Well, it's not homeschooling 3 girls. I promise you that, which is what I'm doing. My wife's in the other room with our oldest right now. I run every day, and I think exercise obviously is a really important part. The one thing that has been a little bit of a blessing is I used to run at 5:30 a.m. and actually earlier than that. I'd always get into the office at 7. And so 7 to 9 was like my golden 2 hours where I could just like focus and get a ton of awesome work done. And I've lost that, unfortunately, a little bit. But it's allowed me to run at different times in the afternoon, and my head's a little bit clearer. That helps quite a bit. I know that this isn't everyone. I mentioned I'm a pilot, and I own an airplane. And one of the most, this was prior to coronavirus, but the most calming thing I can do is fly an airplane. And it's just an amazing feeling to not have the outside world have like this constant digitized drone in you. And so I done that every other weekend, just quick flights. And the skies are a little bit more clear these days, so it's also a really interesting, almost eerie time to do it, but it's been head clearing for sure for me.
Awesome. Well, AJ, it's been great having you on the podcast today. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts. Where can people find you? I saw you're not that active on Twitter.
No, not Twitter. LinkedIn I am. I'm a little bit more active on LinkedIn. AJ Bruno 3 is my handle on LinkedIn. Prior to coronavirus, I've done a lot of like just positive news, but I will become a lot more active this summer as we launch our paid. Our paid goes live June 17th. So the world will very much know who we are post that. But yeah, LinkedIn, if you write, Emma wrote me a message on LinkedIn at like 11 p.m. her time. I was like, is this a real message or is this automated? And she's like, nope, I've been working 17 hours straight. Here I am. So I wrote her back immediately, and that's how we got connected. So feel free to hit me up there.
Good stuff. Well, look, looking forward to your talk at SaaS Remote and seeing you there virtually. But thanks so much for being a guest on the SaaS Revolution today, AJ Bruno, CEO of Quotapath.
Thanks, Alex. Looking forward to talking in a few weeks.